For me, personally, why I've always been around New Zealand native bush. I think a lot of New Zealanders have. And I think when you own a block like this, 63 hectare block of pretty pristine native bush, I think in reality you've got an obligation as a New Zealander to sort of protect it. In 2014, Environment Southland did a bit of a study, I suppose, on around bush in this sort of Central Southland area, and they wanted to come and have a look at this piece of bush and just see what was here. A couple of guys came here and spent 3 days, I think, walking through here and documenting all of the plant species and what was here. And I read that document, and I think it says some statistics like originally 5% of Southlands was covered in bush of this type. 5% is a pretty small amount, and that was originally. And then they're saying that 75% of that has disappeared since that time. So, it's pretty unique, and Environment Southland deemed it a sort of a high value area, and that ups the pressure, I suppose, on keeping it a high value area. So that, I suppose, sowed the seed on that we've got something special. That was way back in 2014, and we really did nothing for a while. We fenced it off, made sure stock couldn't get in here and those kind of things.
So we can get more plants in the ground over a shorter period of time and show a bit of progress rather than have to wait years and years and years.
I suppose it sows the seed and it gets fertilised by different things, and something is, I'll say it's so small, but something sort of semi-unrelated was the Dairy Tomorrow strategy that was put out. I think commitment 1 in there is that we will nurture the environment for future generations. Well, it was just a straight sort of piece of the puzzle just kind of slotted in. So, and I suppose one of our directors is, or two of our directors are part of the Anderson family. So that's sort of Anderson House in Invercargill, that was part of the Anderson family. And they had a property up in the Hokanuis, and there was a memoir written by Hugh Anderson, who I think died in 1977. And the second to last chapter in his memoirs is 2 paragraphs, I think, where he talks about the native birds and how the breaking in of the farm at that time just decimated the bird population. And when he used to enjoy fantails and the like coming to visit him when he was working in his veggie garden, and he would feed them honey and he would do all these kind of things, there's a couple of really sad sentences in the end of those couple of paragraphs where he said, the birds no longer come and the bush is silent. Now, it gives me goosebumps even thinking about that. It's like, that's to me enough of a why. Let's kind of restore it back to the way that it once was.
AB Lime sort of come up with this name of a area of bush that is sort of an island in itself, because, Motu is the meaning of island, and as the marae told us that, or the iwi told us that an island isn't necessarily a place in the water, but it's almost surrounded by a desert of farmland and needs reconnecting with other pieces of bush. So the idea is we sort of get it back to what the original state was. We're going through and doing a large amount of planting within the outskirts of the bush to protect it from sort of wind corrosion, I don't know if that's the right word for it, but and also in the bottom part there's sort of a wetland area that we're sort of wanting to regenerate and plant around 10,000 trees a year to slowly regenerate it so that we can potentially get birds in, and we're creating some ponds for ducks and all that sort of stuff. And then there's also a large amount of pest control going on there. We're putting in A24 lines quite intensively in the bush. So at the moment I'm cutting tracks to put in these A24s so that it's easier access, and that means if we do get volunteers in, it's easy for them to walk through, because if it's just straight bush, they sort of struggle, and we don't really want to just chuck someone in that doesn't have a lot of know-how in the bush. We want to sort of inspire new people to come in and check this out and then help out. So making it easier for them to access is always a big thing. And I'm not going through and clearing big trees, it's sort of stuff sort of thick as my thumb that'll regenerate back naturally. It's not like it's a massive effect, as what I see. And then also we've got a lot of deer control and goats, because there's a few of them coming in from the farms and been released throughout the years, so that there's an ongoing, and also possums and stoats and ferrets. And hedgehogs, there's a lot of hedgehogs in there, so they're probably the biggest thing we catch at the moment. What we're doing is sort of eco-sourcing a lot of, like, all our seeds, taking some from Motu Ngahere, and we're wanting to get some from closer areas just to keep that genetic from the same area. And so we'll be taking them from Motu Ngahere and putting them in the hothouse and growing them from seedlings. This is our first year, so it's a bit of like trial and error. I'm not very experienced when it comes to growing plants, but it seems like it's sort of working. So we've started off now. We've got our first lot was the flaxes, which are just here. So out of one small container, we've got about 700 flaxes, and hopefully we're going to have, hopefully by the end of the year, we should have 10,000 to 20,000 plants, but we don't really know yet. We don't know until we've got them in the bags. And then they'll be held in the nursery until they're quite a large size, just because they're not only getting put in Motu Ngahere, but they're also getting put around the farm for windbreaks and stream plantings and all that sort of stuff. So we want to have them at a larger size than your normal what you buy, just the sheer fact that means that when we plant them, there's not going to be a requirement of a lot of time afterwards to look after them. Hopefully if they're higher up, well, this is what we've been told, if they're higher up and planted nice and close together, they establish a canopy faster, and meaning that we don't have to look after them as much.
Really, we wanted to add some biodiversity to our farm, and to I suppose the organisation as a whole, you know, when it came to the environment. We had a biodiversity plan actually written by Environment Southland. There was a girl, Ellie Mead, who sort of gave us a hand from Environment Southland and put together a biodiversity plan, and it was a 10-year plan really for what we do for this place, and potentially open it to the public with a walking track through it, a bit like, you know, the Forest Hill Reserve. I was probably more selfish in my gains to be had from converting the bush, and I've never seen a kiwi in the wild. I've been in the bush a lot, but I've never seen a kiwi in the wild, and I'm 48 years old, New Zealander. I just wanted to see a kiwi in the wild. And I thought the best place to see it would be here in my 63 hectare piece of native bush. And so really a lot of it has to do with probably trying to restore the bird life back into a piece of bush like this. So the stages, you know, that we go through are, first of all, got to get rid of all the pests out of here. So, you know, Ollie's working pretty hard, cutting pest tracks and killing goats and doing all the like to try and protect it. But for me, it's just so that we can reintroduce birds that sort of have disappeared from this area. So Doc told me I couldn't have kiwis. Apparently the bush isn't big enough for that. I think you need 400 hectares or something to get a self-sustaining population, but I haven't given up hope. I'm hoping that if I can prove to Doc that we can have an area that they're protected enough that they're not going to come in danger, maybe I'll have that conversation in 5 or 10 years' time when they might rethink. Yeah, I think my ideal vision really is that, you know, I'd love for the local community to come and enjoy it. Almost enjoy the rehabilitation of it too. You know, we've got so much land mass in Southland, and not all of it is useful dairy land, and some of it might even be marginal farmland that probably could well be better back into native bush. So I'm hoping that we can educate and show people that, you know, we can rehabilitate certain areas back to the way that they once were. So I think my vision really starts from now. You know, we're doing a bit of shooting and stuff in the bush at the moment, so it's not appropriate to have a whole heap of people in here, but in time I'm hoping people can come here and they can see our nursery and they can work out how to raise plants and they can work out how to plant them and look after them. And you know, the day that we release kiwi in here, I want a big group of people standing here showing how we release birds back into an ecosystem that can sustain them. So you know, I'm really looking forward to that, and hopefully I can share it with as many people as possible. Yeah, the zip line is a great question. I'm not ruling it out. I reckon a zip line would be pretty bloody cool. I'd also thought maybe a luge, a bit like what they've got up at the Skyline gondolas up the top. I thought, you know, we're quite elevated here. Maybe a 500-metre luge ride down to the bottom would be pretty cool too. So who knows, you know. AB Lime's an innovative company, who knows. Maybe we'll have hot pools and a swimming pool too. Run off landfill gas, who knows. Heaps of opportunity.